Hello and welcome to the Cloud Council. Today, we're going to be talking about how to drive radical innovation through entrepreneurship. And I'm delighted to be joined by David Graham, co-founder of Diplomatic Rebels and former head of Lego Ventures. The question is the current era of digital change and economic challenges an opportunity to discover the entrepreneurship within your business? And how do you discover these ideas? I guess we've covered a little bit of that already, but maybe there's another thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, my main point is here. Yes, use a crisis as an opportunity to change, but don't wait for that crisis. I mean, in the old days, consultants will always be talking about the burning platform, and you need that burning platform to really create change. I think the risk now is that once there's a burning platform, it's likely going to be too late for you to really change radically, because any cultural change in average takes, I think, 8 years. There was a big Harvard study showing that. And that means you don't have time to sit and wait for the crisis to really do these changes. But now that there is a crisis, do use that to accelerate the change. Now that people are sitting and working remotely from home, use that to try to work on how, as a leader, do I now empower these teams to be more autonomous and to be able to work more on their own independently, and pursuing these things. And how can you work with creativity when people are not in the same room? Now, as I was working as a leader in Future Lab at Lego, I had a team in Denmark, of course, where the company is headquartered, but I had one in Los Angeles as well, and one in Shanghai. And the time difference between these three locations is a bit challenging. You basically have no good time where all teams can sit on the same call. So what we tried to do, as an example of how to leverage this factor, is that we said, okay, what if we run our innovation projects across these time zones? So we put people together from these three locations, and then we said, by the end of the day, each team should make a video recording of what they've been doing that day to the next team. And they would sort of point out, these were the things we did, and we thought about this, and we tried this, and we tested this. These are the results. And they would send it over to the next team in the next location that would then work for 8-10 hours on that, do the same video. And so we ended up having a 24/7 circle of a team constantly running on a project. So there are ways to try to leverage the fact that people are distributed, they're in different locations. They can leverage maybe also those physical locations they're in to a high extent, rather than when they're gathered under the same roof in the same lab and they're all thinking the same thing. So this is also, it comes about diversified thinking over time. The fact that people are not in the same location, thinking in the same terms, using the same language, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, and I can see how it can drive incredible productivity if you get that follow the sun model, right? So great story. So there's another question here, again, links a little bit to some of the things we were saying about measuring the right things, which is, does entrepreneurship require major investment? And how do you measure the ROI?
I would say entrepreneurship, compared to the traditional way that companies have been running innovation, which is typically an expensive R&D lab, making these big bets on new technologies, on new business areas, or innovation theater, which becomes these major programs that involves everybody, they cost millions and millions. Entrepreneurship is cheap compared to that, because you're way more focused in your spending, and you're setting up a fund, which in a way is a limited fund, so you're capping your spending within that, but you're making sure the fund is big enough to do follow-on investments over a number of years into these projects that you're running. So it's a way more controlled way, and what you want to do is to try to take the fund off balance sheet. So write it off as saying, this is something that we're spending on exploring the future. And this is how the company basically becomes ambidextrous, in the sense that with one hand, it's exploring the existing business, but with the other, it's exploring the future business, and those are quite separate in terms of the funding as well. And it changes the perspective and the perception within the organization of how expensive is this, you know, and in terms of ROI and how you measure this, well, it's leaning up against the venture capital playbook. You can say what you're really looking at is a more long-term horizon, and you're looking at a few of your bets to make the big return. And so it's your investment lies more in understanding the field that you're moving into, really understanding the consumer insights coming from it, leveraging design thinking in constantly challenging your own assumptions. What is key about design thinking is that, let's say you work in a 2-week work cycle known as these design sprints, where you are coming up with your hypothesis saying, we believe that if we do this and this, then this will happen. You're then testing it and with real users. The key advantage is that the teams can only run in the wrong direction for maximum 2 weeks if you are having this 2-week work cycle, instead of the traditional innovation teams that could maybe even run for years before they were challenged by real users on their assumptions. That makes it less risky. It makes it less expensive. So your dollars are spent way more effectively with entrepreneurship, and your return on investment is more clearly defined through which of your bets all of a sudden shows traction that this could become a major new business that then becomes a financial return. In the beginning, it's more understanding in terms of the performance metrics, which of the teams are having, you know, a strong experimentation velocity, are quickly uncovering new territory, are able to pivot and iterate based on the insights that they're gaining. So it is a different scheme, but of course, at the end of the day, you want to see a new business that's delivering turnover and profits to the company. So that factor is still there. Same thing for venture capitalists. They're also looking for that at the end. And obviously you will be as well.
Thank you very much again, David, for your fantastic insight today. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.